topic of today's conversation, Designing to Solve, because Morphogenesis was set up 30 years ago in India when we were changing from a socialist economy to sort of almost capitalistic economy. And suddenly, government, which was predominantly the client, was no longer a client. And a lot of new typologies, new constraints came our way as we started practice. So the challenges that we have seen in the last 30 years had to do with sustainability, optimizing, because resources were limited when the government was no longer funding projects, emission, pollution, even simply how lightly we touch the earth or not. We thought about weight of building and weight of a person who uses the building. So these were all dialogues that we were having internally in the firm. There was a uniqueness issue. So India has always been like, even when you Google search and you go India, you come up with buildings and you come up with food and you come up with textile. So it's always been identified. These are our identities. But what was actually happening was what you see below, an architecture of nowhere. Because suddenly there was a private client, suddenly they wanted it to look like a bit of Dubai, a bit of here and there, a lot of Western influence. Suddenly blue glass was what was desired for everything. And it was very, I would say, very random assimilation of things which were identity-less in the context that they were being done in. We are also today, we started rapidly urbanizing in the 90s, and today we are the fastest urbanizing nation in the world. And as per our economic projections, in the next 10 years, we will be building as much built-up area, architectural area, as the entire city of Chicago. So, and these journeys started 30 years ago, and so did Morphogenesis. So therefore, these were predominantly our thought processes, and the acronym of this, SOUL, became our principle of how we design and how we think about every project. So whilst the thought process is SOUL, but it kind of manifests itself into different solutions and kind of allows us to explore from first principles. So this is a 2008 WAF winner. WAF had just started. It was quite interesting to go there. And this is a building. So earlier, the government used to build schools and colleges. Now suddenly there was private people building schools and colleges with almost no budgets. So this was an academy of fashion. And it was built in an industrial area where there was no water supply and no sewage. So recycling, building with low embodied energy materials, using local craftsmen, using traditional principles of subterranean water storage to provide cool, naturally cool spaces, building without air conditioning except for some teachers who demanded it. So we were very surprised that it won the Best Learning Building of the Year. And it was built at that time, if I remember correctly, at 1,250 rupees per square foot. I don't know how that translates. It translates very little, I know. So the resources were very little. Now we fast forward about 20 years later, actually to 25 maybe, and this was built in COVID. This was a project that is a production factory for a luxurious Ayurveda brand called Forest Essentials. It sells across 80 or 90 countries. And this site had, again, no water, no electricity, no road to get there. And so it became from a factory to actually an iconic, when I say iconic, it's not about the shape, but it's about what it did to the mindset of people. Because it was COVID, there was nobody to build it. So the local 60 odd families on the hill decided to contribute to building it because they're used to building their own hutments. And this building was built like that. And it's an energy positive building. It's become a community center. It's become an evening tuition class center. So after the building was made, the client changed its name to the Lodzi Community Project because it supports the entire community on this hill. This was again a very unique brief, actually. I mean, the project is a simple project, but some philanthropic people from Silicon Valley of Indian origin decided to make a school for only 2 years. You go in here when you're 16 and you come out at 18. And this is for children living below poverty line, some of them who have never used a toilet and they're defecating in the open. Those children are brought in here for 2 years with a very unique program for coaching where when they finally graduate, they go into medical school or engineering school and they have a 96% success rate. So these children who don't know how to sit on like chairs and eat on a table are brought in here. And so this again is a net zero facility because it was very important to us to say that if these children can transform like that in 2 years, they have transformative abilities for the rest of the world. So if they live in a 100% sustainable environment, that's what the change that they go out and make in this world will probably look like. So this is another kind of typology that has become commonplace in India. These are IT buildings, which are special economic zones. And these are put up really rapidly, and these kind of become the back-end IT providers around the world. So this building had a much larger brief than the area that they wanted to build. This is in Hyderabad, which is fairly warm climate. So using passive methods, the F&B facility to feed 700 people has become entirely outdoors, and they use it outdoors throughout the year. So we optimized on space in this building. Whilst this is brick architecture, but because of the speed such projects require, it was actually prefabricated into panels on the ground and lifted up and put up like dry cladding. So there was some technological innovation. There was a lot of microclimate creating innovation, which was done by actually modeling the buildings in such a way that we understood where the sun is, where the shading is, how the wind moves over the water, provides cool air, and shade canopies allow for 700 people to eat outside in temperature over 40 degrees centigrade throughout the year. This was a really interesting building we got to do, and it also finished in COVID. This building is on the way between two forts in Western India, and it is kind of an identity marker, iconic building on a new highway. So that was a desire, that this is like a random highway going from nowhere to nowhere. So let's just think about how it becomes important. So what looks like little triangles here is actually inspired from mirror work, which has become globally famous and comes from this region, where people identified by their own huts by doing mirror work on them. And the fort-like walls are because the temperature on the road, due to heat island effect on the road, crosses 58 degrees centigrade. So this is the western facade. So it was entirely blocked out by layers of walls, where only services are in these layers of wall, not people. And what is otherwise considered parametric architecture, this entire building is curtain steel, and the curtain steel was bent into 1700 tiles by people who actually bend utensils by hand. I mean, make very famous utensils from Gujarat, from this region. So the curtain steel was hand done like this. This is another project where sort of technology and craft came together. This is on the outskirts of Kolkata. Again, fairly random, identity-less kind of area. But the Bengal tradition and culture has a lot of identity. So this building, we decided, as it was almost a seed building in this new town, outside Kolkata, to bring in the culture of Kolkata permanently into the building. So we kind of held a 3-day workshop, put newspaper ads for local artists to come and participate. And okay, so I presume I can continue. So a competition was held, and the local artists expressed what Bengal culture, region, festival, religion means to them. And the same was then modified in our studio to kind of, within the cost constraint, to be able to have one layer of CNC cutting and then further polished into different depths and filled with resin to pick up depth by the artists themselves on site. What you see below is part of Rabindranath Tagore's poetry that talks about environment, and that became the facade. And you can see some of the finishing work going on site. That's just adding depth to CNC cut. So it was kind of, in limited budget, it was a marriage between what machine can do to speed up time and then what the craftsman can do to create that unique images that they have designed in any case. And then, of course, it was put up like a regular dry cladding system. This building, again is a COVID building, and it's the world's largest building, and it's 71 lakh square feet, single-phase building. Now, this was a project commissioned to us from a global competition of 30 architects, and two-stage competition, 30, then 6, then 1. And this houses 92% of all diamonds in the world are designed to go through this building, whether it is in trading, polishing, cutting, whatever else. A lot of the squares you see, that's like ventilation. The image is not picking it up, but there's no glass inside it. It's just a version of jali. And similar to the first presentation that we saw today, there is the jali pixelated in different variations based on the need. So this was actually designed like a vertebrae, and because it's the world's largest building and high security zone, people come in for work within the same 15 minutes. So it was also dependent on the saving human resource, optimizing that. So we designed it for every person who enters the complex should be able to reach the office within 7 minutes. So it's like an airport, it's kind of one directional movement. And then the culture of the people of this region is to do everything informally. Whilst they're probably one of the most successful trading communities in the world, but they follow their, for example, transactions are just like out in the open. Okay, the idea is never let a customer go. If I don't have these diamonds, let me call up my neighbor, maybe he has those diamonds, and kind of come out of the office and say, here is your potli and here is your, give me that. And then they kind of won't eat in a cafeteria, they just won't. So they carry their food from home, or it's delivered at lunchtime to them. And then they'll sit around like even in Mumbai, where they were located before this building happened, they would kind of sit on the pavement or the roadside or under a tree. So a lot of that has been brought into the project. That chance activity, informal activity is at the core of this project. The various building wings you see, the distance was calculated that 5 out of the 9 courtyards are shaded at any point of the day so that they can spill out and go there and also carry on their informal activity in trading. A lot of the traders who don't have offices in this building will come here throughout the day and will meet somebody in one of these courtyards and do a diamond transaction. So I specifically picked up that what is happening in this new India. And this again is a random piece of land outside Nagpur, because this is again going to be a new city. And this is the first building in that city. It's again for an IT giant, Infosys. And so in these kind of faceless, nameless kind of sites, and whilst India is rich with context, but that specific area may not have too many, too many signals of what to refer to. And this is one of those sites. So we looked at that this is exactly on a tropic. It's on the 22.5 degrees. So if we studied that angle, and it became very easy to design a building which was self-shading by its form. And we did a lot of iterations of form, and this is one of 14 buildings planned, so this is the first one up. We brought in color, but it was actually an extrapolation of one of the rags, which is the Indian form of music that emanated from this area. So it is an extrapolation of that in color. Again, local artists were involved, and we specifically have taken a fancy to kind of creating these canvases where artists can get involved. So local artists were involved, and then a version of their work found its representation in the project. So all of these buildings, some of them are net zero, and the smaller ones. And all of these buildings use less than 50% of the LEED's Platinum standard. So that is 90 EPI, and all of them are under 45. The first one is 24, the one below that is 48. So I'm not happy to say that 48 is good, but 48 is half of the best recommendation to get any kind of rating. So a lot of them have well, LEEDs, they all have those kind of ratings. But our country has a mandate to go net zero by 2070. So if today we make buildings which are not zero, how do we add up to becoming zero? You won't. So there's no match in between what the ambition of the country is and what we are building if we don't do zero now, because those buildings will be surviving in 2070. So that is the ambition and the hope with which I like the 48 figures or 45 we reach, but I also dislike them. The aim is that everything should be zero, or like the second building on the top, be energy positive. And that's how we work. Thank you.